Hi, my name is Jeff, and I'm a licensed occupational therapist practicing in America. So today I discovered something really interesting about my 2-year-old while he was playing with his toys. I made a blog post about this topic a little while back, and it was titled Play, Virtual versus Real, Which One is Really Better? Well, that's not exactly the title, but that's basically the gist of it. So we all know what real life play. It's when a child like a 2-year-old plays in real life with their blocks or like a shape sorter. I think that's what they're called, shape sorter. And virtual is what you would imagine like an iPad or an iPhone or something. And for my family, we've been really trying to avoid screen time from our kiddo for as long as possible, but there are some real benefits, I think, to introducing an educational variation of screen time, whether it be an interactive game or something more passive like watching a show. I think sometimes there are just real benefits as well, as such as being in public and your kiddo is like being really impatient, you're waiting for the check at a restaurant, or you're waiting for food to come, having something there to quote unquote distract them, but in a way that they can learn can be helpful. But a lot of critics have been pretty harsh about virtual play. Some of them say, well, it doesn't really facilitate learning. Others say it really just feeds on their reward system. It's almost like an addiction. You know, they reward them with like points or like unlock boxes, or what do you call them, like loot boxes, or not really work on patience. You may just click, or maybe even sometimes you can play to pay, or pay to play, right? So pay to like earn credits and kind of like upgrade or whatever. There's like a lot of types of games, right? The type of game that I introduced my 2-year-old was basically a larger game that has mini games within them. If you remember like Mario Party, it's kind of like that. But the one that we really like to, or my kid actually really likes, is motivated by playing, is the kind of like a shape sorting kind of thing where you basically, I'll show it on the screen right here, where my son basically clicks on an object. I think these are food items, but they have shapes to them. And he's gotten really good at it. Basically, you match like a triangle for a pizza into the triangle box, or like no, I say triangle, I mean circle for a pizza into the circle box, or like actually a pizza is both. So there you go. He got so good at it that basically he like played like the really high levels, and I just watch him playing this. It's like, wow, he's like really good at this. So I wonder how he'll do in real life. And I had pretty high expectations. I was thinking he's going to have like no problem at all. Maybe he'll just have a little bit of like, maybe take more time since it's a new thing for him. But he really struggled with it. Like basically he used trial and error, and he didn't even like look at the shape. Like when he did on the iPad, you like look at the shape a little bit before he like drops it down. In real life, he like grabbed the object and just started jamming it into like the first one that he kind of randomly chose. If that didn't work, he kind of moved on to the next one. But I noticed that there were a lot of things that did not translate between the virtual and in real life. And this is why I think real life play is really important. Some things that I came up with was, well, with the virtual screen, it's pretty much 2D. I know that there are 3D kind of video games and stuff, but you're still looking at a screen, right? So that's a two-dimensional surface that you're interacting with. It's just flat. Like you just pop your finger on it and it'll automatically register like a drag or a click or whatever, right? In real life, there's depth. You have to use your vision and your perception to look at an object and perceive depth. Like something that is farther away is different than if it's closer than to you, right? So you may have to reach, for example, farther away versus on a screen, you're just on one plane. Another thing is the fine motor skills are different, right? My 2-year-old has actually gotten pretty good at turning his finger into like that pointing finger and kind of clicking and dragging on the tablet. We have like a Amazon Fire tablet. I forget how big it is. It's pretty big. And that's really all your interaction. Sometimes he'll try to use like 2 fingers and kind of like cheat. But one thing that he has learned is that because this game, or a lot of these games, have only just 3 answer choices, he kind of just randomly puts it in, and then he figures it out systematically, like by brute force. Like he'll put one in here. If that doesn't work, he'll go into the next one and then third one. So one of them has to work. And I've seen him do that for some of the newer games that he has, and they're a little bit more advanced for his age. But you can't really do that in real life with the real life shape sorter. Like even if you try to like force it in, if it's the wrong angle, like you don't, like, if he doesn't rotate it, like, let's say you have a heart, if it's upside down, then it'll never go in, right? You can't really just force it in. So, I mean, you can if you get lucky, right? Like, but he didn't figure that out. So, another thing I noticed, like, in like these types of games is all these objects for these shape sorting kind of games are already oriented right side up. So you just drop it in like it's already in the correct orientation. Whereas in real life, it can be any orientation in 3D. It could be upside down, it could be backwards. And we actually have a second kind of, a different kind of shape sorter that even has even more shapes, kind of like clover shapes and like trapezoids and like hexagons. And they really go in just one direction. So you have to rotate it and get it in the right direction. So basically it's more complex in terms of 3D spatial awareness and perception and object manipulation. And I think that's really important because that's what we do in the real world with our hands. We don't interact with flat surfaces. So I think we all, and you all know the benefits of real world like play and learning. But what about the virtual? I think the virtual has a lot of benefits too, because even though it may be more of like a simplified version, just on the whim here, thinking of what some benefits may be. One is being able to perceive two-dimensional as three-dimensional because, you know, they may have layers behind it. And that's kind of like a cognitive virtual skill. And I think just in general, this day and age, interacting with digital technology at a young age is probably beneficial to their learning because things are kind of made for them in that way. And I think they can, I don't know, it's just a theory, but they probably, if they develop their technological intelligence early on, I think they will like have less resistance to newer types of technologies and like updates and like new platforms or products, whatever it may be, because they're so used to it. And these types of devices evolve kind of gradually or intuitively. Like Apple's not going to introduce like a VR kind of iPhone or something all of a sudden, right? They'll kind of make it for the masses and make things adaptable. You know, other products too, like Samsung and Android and things like that. Being able to really use your imagination, a lot of these games allow for more imagination kind of things like stories or like objects you couldn't hold in real life. And it can really kickstart your imagination or your kids' imagination so that they think abstractly and imaginatively. And there is actually a specific kind of play called imaginative play. So there you go. I wouldn't say one is better than the other. I think both have their places. I think in general, it's best to introduce real world as early as possible, but then also to combine it, I think that can kind of put the pieces together in your kids' heads. Like, oh, this is like how shape sorting works in real life and then in virtual. And then that may kind of help them develop the skills to think abstractly or whatever virtually we may have in the future, like 3D modeling and things like that. They'll be like really good at it, probably better than me at it. So I think those are some of the benefits. As long as you stay away from the games that are kind of like less educational, I think, for a young age. And I think also setting time limits, because yeah, I've been having no trouble with this. Like I have no trouble taking away the real life shape sorter from my kiddo, but the iPad, oh my God, that's like a battle right there. So that is, I think, one downside to it. I think that's always probably one of the harder things for the kiddo to learn. But I think it's also important. It gives you the opportunity to work on behavioral training or parenting, or whatever it may be, with your kiddo by being able to take away something so high value from them and teaching and educating them about it at an early age, I think is also very beneficial. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. What do you think is better? Would you keep the virtual away from the kid, or would you combine both? Have some of you not introduced virtual to your kids yet, even if at a quote unquote older age? So let me know. Thanks for watching and hope this helps.